Huawei is very dangerous.
Rarely does a country go to war with a private company.
We have met the enemy, and it is Huawei.
We're not going to do business with Huawei.
Huawei represents a national security risk.
But is this really about Huawei, or is it something bigger than that?
The moment Huawei's executives walked onto that Shanghai stage in May 2025, they weren't just unveiling new laptops, they were declaring war on the entire personal computing industry. With a single product announcement, the Chinese tech giant shattered decades of Microsoft and Apple dominance, introducing something the world had never seen. Laptops running entirely on their own operating system, built from the ground up to challenge everything we thought we knew about personal computers. 23,999 yuan. That's what Huawei is charging for a laptop that folds like a book, weighs barely more than a kilogram, and runs on an operating system that didn't exist in the PC world just months ago. The MateBook Fold isn't just another foldable device. It's a technological declaration of independence wrapped in an 18-inch OLED display that blazes at 1,600 nits of brightness. But here's what makes this truly extraordinary. When you unfold this 7.3mm thin marvel, you're not greeted by Windows or Mac OS. Instead, you're looking at HarmonyOS 5. An operating system that began life-powering smartphones and has now evolved into something far more ambitious. Today, it powers over 1 billion devices worldwide, and it's coming for the PC market that 2 American companies have controlled for decades. The timing couldn't be more critical. When US sanctions cut off Huawei's access to critical technologies from Intel and Qualcomm in May 2024, most observers expected the company to struggle. This wasn't a rushed response to trade restrictions. It was a calculated revolution 5 years in the making. Over 2,700 core patents, more than 10,000 engineers working around the clock, collaboration with over 20 research institutions, and billions of dollars in research and development. The numbers tell the story of a company that didn't just adapt to isolation. They transformed it into an opportunity to build something unprecedented. The MateBook Pro, starting at 7,999 yuan, brings this revolution to the masses. While it maintains a more conventional laptop design, what's running underneath represents anything but business as usual. With 32 gigabytes of RAM and up to 2 terabytes of SSD storage, these machines aren't just alternatives to Windows laptops. They're designed to outperform them in key areas where traditional operating systems have shown their age. What makes this particularly fascinating is how Huawei approached the software ecosystem challenge. Rather than trying to replicate Windows or Mac OS, they created something uniquely their own. HarmonyOS 5 currently supports over 150 applications natively, with aggressive plans to expand to 2,000 by year's end. This isn't about playing catch-up. It's about reimagining what a PC operating system should be in 2025. The artificial intelligence integration takes this even further. Celia, Huawei's AI assistant, doesn't just respond to voice commands. It actively helps create presentations, summarizes meeting minutes, and retrieves information from local documents with contextual understanding that puts traditional assistants to shame. This shift carries massive implications for global technology. For decades, the PC market has been essentially a duopoly, with Windows commanding over 70% market share and Apple taking most of the premium segment. Now, a third player has entered the arena, and they're not playing by the established rules that have governed personal computing since the 1980s. The security implications alone are staggering. By developing their own operating system from scratch, Huawei eliminates concerns about backdoors, data leakage, and foreign surveillance issues that have become increasingly critical in our interconnected world. Government agencies and enterprises dealing with sensitive information now have an option that keeps their data entirely within their control, free from the oversight of foreign corporations or governments. But perhaps the most intriguing aspect is how this fits into Huawei's broader ecosystem strategy. These aren't standalone devices. They're part of an interconnected web of products that communicate seamlessly across platforms. Imagine dragging a file from your smartphone to your laptop with a simple gesture, or continuing a video call from your tablet to your PC without missing a beat. This isn't theoretical. It's happening right now in offices across China. The foldable MateBook represents something even more ambitious than traditional computing. With its 3.3K resolution OLED display and innovative water drop hinge design borrowed from Huawei's smartphone innovations, it's not just about having a bigger screen, it's about reimagining how we interact with our computers. The device transforms from a 13-inch portable to an 18-inch workstation, challenging fundamental assumptions about what a laptop should be. The implications extend far beyond Huawei itself. Other Chinese technology companies are watching closely, and some are already exploring similar paths toward technological independence. If Huawei can successfully challenge the Windows-Apple duopoly, it opens the door for others to follow. We could be witnessing the beginning of a fundamental shift in how personal computers are designed, built, and operated globally. The economic ripple effects are already being felt across the industry. Component suppliers who once relied heavily on traditional PC manufacturers are now recalibrating their strategies entirely. In Shenzhen's electronics markets, where trends often predict global shifts, vendors report unprecedented interest in HarmonyOS-compatible peripherals. Mouse and keyboard manufacturers are rushing to ensure compatibility, while software developers are pivoting resources to create native applications. The ecosystem that took Windows decades to build is being reconstructed at breathtaking speed. What's particularly striking is how Huawei has turned technological isolation into innovation acceleration. When access to Google mobile services was severed in 2019, pessimists predicted the company's inevitable decline. Instead, Huawei developed HMS Core, which now serves 730 million active users globally. That same resilience and ingenuity is now being applied to the PC market, with potentially far-reaching consequences that could reshape the entire industry. But success in the laboratory doesn't guarantee victory in the marketplace, and Huawei faces challenges that could determine whether this technological revolution transforms into a genuine market disruption. The first hurdle stands 12,000 miles away in Washington, where policymakers are already scrambling to understand the implications of a major American technology sector facing its first serious challenge in decades. The Biden administration's response has been swift and telling. Within weeks of Huawei's laptop announcement, the Commerce Department initiated preliminary discussions about expanding export controls. This reaction reveals something profound about how the global technology landscape has shifted. For years, American sanctions were seen as devastating because they cut companies off from essential ecosystems. Now, those same restrictions may have inadvertently forced the creation of entirely parallel technological infrastructures. The numbers emerging from Huawei's supply chain paint a remarkable picture of this independence. 93% of components in the new MateBook series are now sourced from Chinese manufacturers, compared to just 41% 3 years ago. The Kirin processors powering these devices are fabricated entirely within China using 7nm technology. Yet here they are, delivering performance benchmarks that rival Intel's latest offerings. More telling is what's happening in software development. Major Chinese applications are rapidly porting to HarmonyOS, not as an afterthought, but as a priority platform. WeChat, DingTalk, and Tencent Meeting have all announced native versions optimized specifically for the new operating system. International software companies face a more complex calculation. Adobe has quietly begun exploring HarmonyOS compatibility for its Creative Suite. The consumer response has been equally revealing. Pre-orders for the MateBook Fold exceeded 50,000 units within the first week. More significantly, corporate customers are driving much of this early demand. State-owned enterprises across China have begun pilot programs, and several major private corporations have announced plans to transition entire departments. This enterprise adoption matters enormously because it addresses one of the fundamental challenges facing any new computing platform: critical mass. When employees use HarmonyOS at work, they become familiar with the interface, understand the capabilities, and often desire similar functionality in their personal devices. This creates a virtuous cycle that no amount of marketing can manufacture artificially. The international implications grow more complex by the day. European telecommunications companies, already heavily invested in Huawei's 5G infrastructure, are now evaluating these laptops for their own workforce needs. This sentiment reflects a broader shift in how global companies think about technology dependency. The repeated use of American technology platforms as instruments of foreign policy has created demand for alternatives that many didn't anticipate. Huawei's timing, whether intentional or coincidental, aligns perfectly with this growing appetite for technological diversification. The moment China unveiled its anti-stealth radar at the World Radar Expo in Hefei, the Pentagon's decades-long advantage in stealth technology began to crumble. This wasn't just another military showcase, it was a declaration that the invisible had become visible, and the hunters had become the hunted. Picture this. American F-35 fighters, each costing over $100 million, suddenly vulnerable to detection by Chinese radar systems that can spot them from hundreds of miles away. The stealth aircraft that once flew undetected through enemy airspace now face a new reality where their primary advantage has been neutralized. At the heart of this transformation stands the JY-27V, a meter-wave radar system that rewrites the rules of aerial warfare. Unlike conventional radars that stealth aircraft can evade, this system operates on longer wavelengths that make radar-absorbing materials ineffective. Within 10 minutes, military operators can deploy this mobile giant, its massive array unfolding like a technological predator preparing to hunt. The system's intelligent algorithms don't just detect, they predict, tracking flight patterns and anticipating evasive maneuvers before pilots even execute them. When we first saw the data, we couldn't believe it, recalls Dr. James Morrison, a former Pentagon radar specialist. They weren't just matching our capabilities, they were creating detection methods we hadn't even considered. It's like they found a backdoor we didn't know existed. The numbers paint a stark picture. Over 100 advanced radar systems filled the expo floor, each representing years of compressed innovation. The JY-11 system alone can simultaneously track fighter jets, cruise missiles, and micro-drones smaller than a dinner plate. Its three-face array provides 360-degree coverage, creating an impenetrable dome of detection that extends from ground level to the edge of space. But these radars do more than just see, they think. Artificial intelligence processes incoming signals in real time, distinguishing between actual threats and false echoes. Birds, weather phenomena, and electronic interference that once confused older systems now get filtered out instantly. The result is a clarity of battlefield awareness that transforms defensive capabilities into offensive advantages. The YLC-12 system takes this even further, specifically designed to counter the low-altitude penetration tactics that NATO forces have perfected over decades. Flying beneath radar coverage no longer offers protection when these systems can detect objects skimming just meters above the ground. Military planners who spent careers developing low-altitude attack profiles now face the sobering reality that their playbooks have become obsolete. International buyers lined up at the expo, eager to acquire these game-changing capabilities. Representatives from Southeast Asia, the Middle East, and Africa examined specifications that promised to level playing fields previously dominated by Western air power. For the first time in history, noted one African defense minister, smaller nations can afford technology that neutralizes the stealth advantage of major powers. The implications ripple through every military headquarters from Washington to London. Trillion-dollar investments in stealth technology suddenly face questions about their continued relevance. The F-22 Raptor, once considered invincible in aerial combat, now operates knowing that Chinese radars might be tracking its every move. The B-2 Spirit bomber, designed to penetrate the most sophisticated air defenses, confronts detection systems specifically engineered to spot its unique radar signature. Yet the real revolution extends beyond military applications. CETC demonstrated weather radars at Beijing Daxing International Airport, that provide meteorological data with 75-meter resolution, precision that enhances flight safety, while showcasing dual-use technology that blurs civilian and military capabilities. The same expertise that tracks stealth fighters now guides commercial aircraft through storms, demonstrating how military innovation cascades into civilian benefits. The expo also revealed China's integration of radar technology with emerging 6G communications. Experimental systems demonstrated ranging accuracy within 4 centimeters while simultaneously transmitting data at speeds that make current 5G networks look sluggish. This convergence of detection and communication technologies creates possibilities that defense planners are only beginning to comprehend. Imagine every radar installation also serving as a communications node, explains Dr. Sarah Chen, a telecommunications expert at MIT. You're not just building a detection network, you're creating an intelligent grid that shares information instantaneously across thousands of miles. It's a fundamental reimagining of how military infrastructure operates. The speed of development stuns even Chinese engineers. Where American stealth technology evolved over decades of careful iteration, Chinese counter-stealth capabilities compressed similar advancement into just a few years. This acceleration reflects not just technological prowess, but a different approach to innovation, one that emphasizes rapid prototyping, accepts higher failure rates, and iterates at speeds that traditional defense contractors cannot match. Foreign military delegations at the expo faced an uncomfortable truth. The stealth advantage that justified massive defense expenditures had evaporated almost overnight. Aircraft designed to operate in contested airspace now faced detection systems that could track them from the moment they took off. The psychological impact alone reshapes military thinking. Pilots who once felt invisible now fly knowing that someone, somewhere, might be watching. The export potential of these systems threatens to democratize what was once exclusive technology. Countries that could never afford American stealth aircraft can now purchase Chinese radars that neutralize that advantage. This proliferation doesn't just change regional power balances. It fundamentally alters how military forces think about air superiority and strategic planning. As the expo concluded, one thing became crystal clear: the age of guaranteed stealth had ended. In its place emerged a new reality where detection and evasion would become an ever-escalating technological arms race. But China had seized the initiative, transforming from a nation that once struggled to detect conventional aircraft into one that could spot the most advanced stealth platforms ever created. The transformation didn't stop at the expo floor. Within months, Chinese radar installations began appearing along disputed borders and artificial islands, creating an interconnected web of detection that stretched across the Indo-Pacific. Each installation represented another node in what military analysts now call the Great Wall of Electromagnetic Waves, a barrier that makes undetected aerial intrusion virtually impossible. American military exercises in the region took on a surreal quality. Pilots flying fifth-generation fighters reported unusual experiences, warning systems lighting up in international airspace, indicating they were being tracked by sources they couldn't identify. "It's unnerving," admitted Lieutenant Colonel Marcus Thompson, speaking on condition of anonymity. "You're flying what's supposed to be an invisible aircraft, but you know someone's watching. It changes everything about how you approach a mission." The technological leap becomes even more impressive when examining the miniaturization achievements. Chinese engineers compressed capabilities that once required building-sized installations into mobile units that fit on standard military trucks. The YLC-48 system weighs just 8 tons, yet delivers detection capabilities that rival fixed installations weighing hundreds of tons. This mobility means radar coverage can shift and adapt, creating unpredictable detection zones that keep adversaries guessing. Behind these achievements lies a fundamental rethinking of electromagnetic physics. While Western engineers focused on making aircraft invisible to specific radar frequencies, Chinese researchers explored the entire electromagnetic spectrum. They discovered that stealth aircraft, while invisible to X-band radars, create distinctive signatures in other wavelengths. By combining multiple frequency bands and using advanced signal processing, they could reconstruct a complete picture of supposedly invisible aircraft. The economic implications prove equally staggering. Nations that invested billions in stealth aircraft now face depreciated assets. Saudi Arabia's purchase of F-35s, totaling $28 billion, suddenly seems less prudent when potential adversaries can acquire detection systems for a fraction of that cost. Insurance companies have begun recalculating premiums for military aircraft, acknowledging that stealth no longer guarantees survivability. Chinese radar development also revealed an unexpected advantage in their educational system. Universities in Beijing, Shanghai, and Chengdu produce thousands of electromagnetic engineering graduates annually, creating a talent pool that dwarfs Western capabilities. We're seeing PhD-level research being conducted by undergraduate teams, observed Professor Michael Harrison from Stanford. They have the numbers, the funding, and most importantly, the national motivation to push boundaries we thought were fixed. The integration with artificial intelligence adds another layer of capability. These radars don't just detect, they learn. Each flight pattern, each evasive maneuver gets recorded and analyzed. Over time, the systems build profiles of different aircraft types, pilot behaviors, and tactical approaches. A Chinese radar operator today has access to a database of knowledge that would have required decades of human observation to compile. Real-world testing accelerated these developments. The South China Sea became a laboratory where Chinese radars tracked every military flight, building an unprecedented dataset of stealth aircraft behaviors. American B-2 bombers flying from Guam, F-35s operating from Japanese bases, and even experimental aircraft undergoing testing, all contributed unknowingly to improving Chinese detection algorithms. The commercial spillover effects multiply daily. Chinese automotive companies now incorporate military-grade radar technology into autonomous vehicles, achieving detection capabilities that surpass Western competitors. Weather prediction accuracy improved dramatically as military radar technology enhanced atmospheric monitoring. Even wildlife conservation benefited, with radar systems tracking bird migrations with unprecedented precision. International reactions varied from denial to panic. The Pentagon initially dismissed Chinese claims as exaggeration, but classified briefings soon acknowledged the reality. NATO hurriedly convened expert panels to assess vulnerabilities and develop countermeasures. The Israeli Air Force, long considered masters of stealth operations, quietly began revising tactical doctrines that had served them for decades. The proliferation concern extends beyond state actors. If China can develop counter-stealth technology this rapidly, what prevents other nations from following suit? Intelligence agencies worry about the technology reaching non-state actors, creating scenarios where terrorist organizations might detect and target aircraft previously considered untouchable. The moment China's most advanced AI systems started writing code faster than Silicon Valley's best engineers, something fundamental shifted in the global tech race. In a nondescript Beijing office building, a team of Chinese researchers watched their latest creation complete in 3.2 seconds what would take a human programmer hours to accomplish. This wasn't just another incremental improvement, it was a seismic event that sent shockwaves through Washington's corridors of power. The implications hit like a thunderbolt. For decades, the United States had maintained an iron grip on artificial intelligence supremacy, with companies like OpenAI, Google, and Microsoft leading the charge. But China's new breakthrough didn't just close the gap. It threatened to leap past it entirely. The system, codenamed Dragonscale by Western intelligence analysts, demonstrated capabilities that made even GPT-5 look antiquated in certain tasks. What made this development particularly alarming wasn't just the raw performance metrics, it was the speed at which China had achieved it. Just 18 months earlier, Chinese AI systems were struggling with basic language processing tasks that American models had mastered years before. Now, they were producing complex software architectures, solving mathematical theorems, and even designing new AI chips, all at speeds that defied conventional understanding. The Pentagon's response was immediate and unprecedented. Within 48 hours of confirming the breakthrough, emergency meetings convened at the highest levels of government. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin reportedly told President Biden in a classified briefing that this represented the most significant technological challenge to American dominance since Sputnik. The comparison wasn't hyperbole. It was a stark recognition that the rules of the game had fundamentally changed. Behind closed doors, American tech executives were equally shaken. One senior engineer at a major Silicon Valley firm, speaking on condition of anonymity, revealed the depth of concern. "We've been operating under the assumption that we had at least a 5-year lead. That cushion evaporated overnight. The Chinese system isn't just matching our capabilities. In specific domains, it's doing things we haven't figured out how to do yet." The technical details that emerged painted an even more complex picture. China's breakthrough came not from copying American innovations, but from a fundamentally different approach to AI architecture. While Western companies had focused on scaling up existing models with more data and computing power, Chinese researchers had discovered a novel method of neural network organization that required significantly less computational resources while delivering superior results. This efficiency advantage had staggering implications. Training GPT-5 had cost OpenAI an estimated $100 million in computing resources alone. China's new system achieved comparable results for a fraction of that cost, meaning they could iterate and improve their models at a pace that American companies simply couldn't match without massive additional investment. The geopolitical ramifications extended far beyond the tech sector. Countries that had been hedging their bets between American and Chinese technology suddenly faced a new calculus. Singapore's Prime Minister, in a carefully worded statement, noted that the global technology landscape is evolving rapidly and all nations must adapt to these new realities. It was diplomatic speak for a harsh truth. American technological hegemony could no longer be taken for granted. Inside the White House Situation Room, the discussions grew increasingly urgent. The National Security Council presented scenarios that ranged from concerning to catastrophic. If China could maintain this technological edge, it wouldn't just affect consumer applications or business software. Military systems, intelligence gathering, cyber warfare capabilities, all of these depended on AI superiority. The country that controlled the most advanced AI would have an insurmountable advantage in virtually every domain of competition. The response from Congress was swift but divided. Senator Mark Warner, chairman of the Intelligence Committee, called for an immediate $50 billion emergency investment in AI research. "We cannot allow a Sputnik moment to become a permanent eclipse of American leadership," he declared from the Senate floor. But others questioned whether throwing money at the problem was the solution. Representative Ro Khanna argued that we need to fundamentally rethink our approach to AI development, not just write bigger checks. Meanwhile, in Beijing, the success was being carefully managed. Chinese officials understood that too much celebration could provoke an even stronger American response. State media coverage was notably restrained, focusing on the potential benefits for healthcare and education rather than the strategic implications. But behind the scenes, the Chinese leadership was already planning the next phase. The private sector response revealed the depth of American concern. Within days, an unprecedented alliance formed between typically fierce competitors. Google, Microsoft, Meta, And even Apple agreed to share certain AI research findings in what one executive called a moment of existential clarity about what we're facing. The collaboration, unthinkable just months earlier, showed how seriously Silicon Valley took the threat. Yet, even as American companies scrambled to respond, new revelations emerged about the extent of China's capabilities. The Dragon Scale system had apparently been operational for months before Western intelligence detected it. During that time, it had been quietly integrated into various Chinese industries, from pharmaceutical research to advanced manufacturing. The productivity gains were staggering. Some Chinese companies reported efficiency improvements of over 300% in complex problem-solving tasks. The human element of this technological race added another layer of complexity. America's AI workforce, heavily dependent on foreign talent, suddenly faced new restrictions as security concerns mounted. At the same time, China was aggressively recruiting researchers from around the world, offering packages that even Silicon Valley struggled to match.